On today's show, the top 10 tips for promoting your live show. Cue title sequence.
30-minute music marketing for musicians who want to get better at marketing their music.
Hi, I'm Greg.
Hello, I'm Sheldon, and this is 30-minute music marketing, the show for independent artists and DIY musicians who want to get better at marketing their music. That's you. Hi. Thank you very much for watching this particular episode. We've got lots of other episodes if you look at our playlists and our channel to do with all aspects of marketing music. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, whatever that means. Today, Greg, we're going to be talking about how to promote your gigs and shows as a DIY artist and musician.
So, quite a lot to get through.
A lot to get through, and it's very important simply because as recorded music sales have declined, the balance has had to be made up in the live music sector. So live music and shows is more important now for DIY artists than ever before. As a DIY musician, I'm in a band, and I think it's probably fair to say that between 70 and 80% of the money that we make from being in a band comes from live music and from gigging and touring and playing festivals. So the better that we are, and indeed you are, at promoting those particular shows, the more money that we're likely to get at the end of the day. So it's of top importance for everyone as a DIY artist and musician. So hopefully there's going to be 10 fantastic tips in here, all the T's, top 10 tips for everyone out there.
Because, yeah, you're right. I mean, the live show for you is a big revenue.
It is a big
as a percentage
revenue.
Even the merch as well, once you're actually there.
Especially the merch as well. Yeah, you can make a lot of money in terms of on each and every single person that's there. If you've got a range of merch, maybe that's an episode in itself.
Because I mean that's a good idea. You probably sell more CDs at the event, even though people have already come to listen to music. They still buy the CD, which they probably don't just order them online from your shop, do they?
It's a souvenir. But again, that's for a future show.
Yeah, it's just something I thought of.
So we've got 10 essential tips.
Okay, so tip number 1.
First off, by the way, I've got a bit of a cold, so I'm going to have a bit of a swig.
Of what is it? Hot water.
Well, you're supposed to be saying the numbers. Come on.
I know. Okay, number 1. All right. So it is give yourself time to promote the event or the show.
There's nothing worse, I think, than having a very short lead-up time between when you announce the show and the actual show taking place. People need time in order to plan things within their lives. There's certain logistics whenever you go to a show at a nearby town or city that needs to be taken care of. It could be getting to the show. It could be babysitting if you're of a certain age, as I know a lot of people are in terms of my friends. It could be actually earning enough money to pay for the show. So the longer the amount of time that you can plan in order for that to happen, the better. What's not a good idea is maybe taking a gig on with 2 weeks to go and then trying to drum up enough interest and enough excitement within 2 weeks. That's probably not going to work out to be a large sort of attendance. Now, the thing is, as part of my day job, I work for an events promotions company that puts on gigs, and we tend to find that between 4 and 6 months is about the ideal sweet spot for the show going on sale and maybe giving ourselves lots of opportunities, especially at the end of the month when people get paid to try and advertise. We run Facebook ads to promote all our shows. And we tend to find that between 4 and 6 months is about the ideal length of time for us.
That's going to come as quite a surprise for a lot of bands, a lot of people watching this, that in terms of anticipating that far ahead.
Now, we know because we've been in bands ourselves and we're still associated with a lot of bands that maybe sort of on a smaller sort of level, that they might get offers of interests to play a gig from venues and promoters, maybe over the Facebook, and they'll say, "Oh, we've got a slot free in 2 weeks' time. Can you play that gig?" We know that sort of thing happens a lot, and is probably going to happen to you as a viewer of this particular
Because usually
show.
a band's pulled out at the last minute.
Something like that, or it just well be that whoever's running the diary for that particular event is probably doing a myriad of other things. What I'd be tempted to do is maybe say, well, in this particular case, maybe turn down that offer, maybe give them some sort of reason as to why that might not be able to take place, and just go, right, oh, we've got a free slot in the diary in maybe, say, 3 months' time. So you're still hopefully going to be playing that particular for that particular promoter or within that particular venue. It's just that you're trying to do it on your terms rather than theirs. And don't forget, they've contacted you. But and then if you can diary that ahead for 3 months' time, you've then got 3 solid months within which to try and you've got a good crack, a good job of trying to actually promote that show rather than 2 weeks, which is going to be well, it's not going to work out particularly well.
The only people definitely going to show up at that is yourself
and your friend, and a few
your friends.
Hardcore friends and family, right? So yeah, the more time, the better.
So that's a good starter.
Yes.
Number 2, you put have a good poster.
So your poster for your event is going to be a good indicator for the casual person as to how the event is going to run. The better the poster, the more professional looking the poster in terms of the mind and semiotics and the signs that particular poster gives off, then the person who views that poster will subliminally think, well, if that's a good poster, chances are the event is also going to be good. If you knock something up in Word art or other Microsoft Word or terrible online packages, the amount of it's not that me and my friends occasionally snigger when we see really, really badly produced event posters, and we certainly wouldn't screenshot those posters and send it to each other in WhatsApp and then giggle at the lack of professionalism. But this is the thing, if you see something and the poster is amateurish, you're going to think, well, the band's amateurish or the artist is amateurish, the night is going to be amateurish also. So it pays, even if you pay a graphic designer to create like a template that you can reuse again and again and again, and you've just got like the overprint at the bottom, at the lower third, where you can print the name of the venue, and you can just personalise or individualise that particular bit, then that's really something. It's an investment.
I suppose it's like if you were to see an advert for a business that couldn't spell properly.
Yes.
You'd possibly think, there's a business that I'm not going to mention, but I like the fact, and it always makes me giggle, every time they have a thing written on the door and somebody didn't proofread the word friendly, so it's spelt friendly, which I just think is really funny.
Myself and my wife have a motto in terms of adverts or takeaway flyers, and basically, if you can't spell it or if you've got a terrible punctuation, then it's the lack of care and attention in the promotional materials is probably going to pass through to the food that we're going to be eating. So if it's spelt wrong, and if it's got terrible greengrocers apostrophes, chances are your food's going to taste rubbish as well.
So for your first impressions, that's basically what I was trying to get.
You've succinctly summed it all up in 2 words.
Thank you.
It's very good. He earns his keep.
I'm getting there.
He earns his keep.
I'm so bad that if I see something advertised on Facebook Marketplace, if the person cannot use decent English or grammar in their advert, I will just think that item has not been looked after.
Yes, that's
that might be a little bit elitist, and I don't mean it to be. It's just
the way he is, ladies and gentlemen.
So I like the idea of the template. That means you can reuse.
Yes, there are a couple of places. What's the one? Postermywall.com has band flyer templates, which I think you can open up in Photoshop and Illustrator. Indeed, the poster for my band's forthcoming summer tour was adapted from one of those templates, and I think it cost me £3. Now, obviously, I can work my way around Photoshop, so I can take something that a professional designer has started, and then I can go in there, I can remove elements and add elements. So I can, someone's already half completed the job for me. So again, if you can work your way around Photoshop, and some of those templates are quite easy, whereby it might just have a stock photo of a singer or a guitarist or what have you, and maybe you can swap that out for a photo of you, and maybe that's the only thing that needs changing, other than maybe to change the text within the poster. So they're a good option if you want to do it all yourself.
Okay, so we've kind of talked obviously about resources, like things like Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
You can obviously rent Photoshop and get Photoshop Elements, which is a cheaper version. So the next one, for those who are obviously cash strapped, which is nearly all
Most
of
of us, yes.
You've mentioned here, use free event promotion tools.
Yes, so the two that come instantly to mind are Bands in Town, and I'm sure quite a few of the people that are watching this or listening to this will be familiar with Bands in Town. Are you familiar with Bands in Town?
It's the first I've heard of it.
Well, there you go. He runs a studio.
Finger on the pulse as always.
Finger on the pulse, good old Greg. It's a service that lets its users know when the bands that they like are in their area. So if that particular user who lives near Liverpool, say, when my band announces a show in Liverpool, that particular person should get a notification through their email that we've got a gig near there. Now, that's pretty good, isn't it? And it's free.
I think it's a good way for... I mean, how different is that, though, to a mailing list? Is it just automated?
It's just automated, and it's something that the band doesn't have to do. You have to just make sure that bands in town know that that event is taking place. They scrape a lot of information from tickets, websites, things like Ticketmaster, and so a lot of the time if your events are listed there, you don't need to do anything. Other than that, you can just log into your account and create those events manually. If you've got a lot of events, you can upload an Excel sheet, but it's a free way that people can find out about your shows. That's got to be good.
Yeah. And the next one you've mentioned here is Songkick.
Songkick, another free service. Their Tourbox service, pretty much the same thing. If you upload your gigs and shows to Tourbox, and again, sometimes they scrape that information from
when you say
other
upload,
sources.
do you mean like media content?
No, but you have an account with Songkick, and you go up there and you make sure that your events are all listed there. So I go on there, and my band, a lot of the events are automatically listed.
Right.
And so they've got that information from somewhere. Again, probably ticket agencies. There's a couple that I might need to manually create, and they will put that information primarily with Spotify.
Okay.
Now that's pretty good.
That is
so
good.
Somebody can go onto my artist page and they can find out about events near them, and
that's
it's
cool.
free.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's pretty damn good. So make sure you're signed up and using Bands in Town and Songkick, and that all your information as an artist and all your events are up to date on there.
So this moves nicely on, because I already mentioned about a mailing list, but your next one is to notify your mailing list.
You'd be surprised the amount of artists that have a mailing list and don't really use it on a regular basis. As a way of an example, I signed up for one particular singer's mailing list. I won't mention their name, but I think in the two...
They're local?
No, not really.
Okay,
fairly local.
Okay.
And I've been signed up there for maybe 2, maybe 3 years. I've probably had about 3 emails from them. Now, admittedly, the last email I received from them, it was, I think, last week, and it was about one of their upcoming shows. So I'll let them off in that respect. However, there's been dozens of shows since, and they've not bothered to notify me at all. And the thing is, it is hard trying to contact people and to reach people and to notify your audience wherever they may be, either on social media and what have you. And there really is nothing more annoying than you going to a town or city and then receiving a communique, maybe on social media, going, "Oh, when you play in such and such a place," and it's just like, "We played there last week." "Oh, I didn't know about that. Have you been living under a rock?" So it is hard. So the more potential channels that you have to notify people, and again, to notify the people that do actually want to receive messages from you, mailing lists are what's referred to as permission marketing. So in other words, you have the permission of those people on that list to contact them.
Which makes a big difference.
And obviously the idea is not just to solely hammer those people with what are potentially sales messages. But again, if you've got their permission, then the occasional email, maybe listing all your gigs, make sure you use it.
But you can also then use it for other exclusive content and things like that. So it doesn't have to be just...
Standard practice is to email the people on your list about once a week. So, it may well be that 1 week you're listing all your shows, 1 week you may be giving them an exclusive video, another week may well be a humorous anecdote about driving all the way down to a town and them not having anybody on the box office and you having to run that. And the hilarious consequences of being in a touring band. That sort of thing. Enough of my woes.
So, in terms of, I think obviously we're going to be leading nicely on to number 5, but, it's a shame that people probably rely too much on number 5. Which is why they're not able to do much of number 4.
I don't know. I still think they are an underutilised resource. What is number 5?
Number 5 is using Facebook events.
Facebook events are great.
I think
No. A lot of people... Right, here we go. We can have a good chat about this. All this is unrehearsed, by the way. If you people, Instagram, it's brilliant. It's like trying to actually sell or shift anything on Instagram is really, really hard because it's primarily a branding platform. Facebook is the only social media network whereby you can do a bit of business. And in terms of if you're trying to get people to your gigs and to your shows, the Facebook event is really so much of, I think, a focal point of that. And I don't think people know how to properly utilise that particular resource. What's your gripe about Facebook events?
No, it's not so much the infrastructure of Facebook. It's just the fact that bands, that's the only thing they do.
No, yeah, well,
And I'm forever seeing Facebook events and, this idea
Are you constantly added as a private individual?
Yes.
Right, so maybe
it's almost like this idea that,
they
add everybody.
Right, well, that in itself is not a marketing strategy. It's maybe one element of it. However, just inviting all your friends that are Facebook friends with you to the Facebook event, that's not how... Well, whenever, as a musician, I don't invite any of my people who I'm friends with to my Facebook events because I'm marketing to actual to people. But so I like to consider Facebook events is right. That's a focal point for members of the general public to get information about that particular show. So the first thing to do is make sure that everyone who's involved with that particular show are co-hosts. So that could be the venue. That could well be the promoter. It could be the other artists on there. And I've seen some people go, oh, well, I've been told we need as many Facebook events as possible. No, what you need to do is you just have one Facebook event. And if there's already a Facebook event that's been set up for a show that you're playing, what you can do is you can go to that event and you'll see 3 dots on the right-hand side of that event and you can add it to your particular calendar. And then I think you should become a co-host of that particular event. And the idea is that you create a focal point that it's almost like a plant. It needs nurturing, it needs water, it needs plant food. And if people respond to that particular event, even if they respond just to say that they might be interested, then every time that somebody posts in that event to try and persuade people to go, they will get a notification on their Facebook newsfeed. So if I posted maybe a video of myself or my band performing, just to say, "Oh right, here, we're this gig is in 3 weeks' time. Here's what we got up to, this Saturday to try and show people and persuade people." They'll get a notification. It's really hard trying to get people's attention on Facebook, but if they've shown interest in that particular event, then every time you post in there, even if they're only slightly interested, you've got another opportunity to try and get their attention, and they will receive a notification. And that's the hardest thing. And every time they get a notification, you're trying to contact them, and that won't cost you anything because obviously Facebook ads is one of the ways that you can use to promote your show, but obviously that costs money. So, but anything that you can do, every little touch that you have, excuse me, with that person on the other end, you can do it for free. Fantastic. So my advice would be to feed it on a regular basis. And if people are interested, my advice to you is, right, okay, so what can you do in order to try and persuade people to go? What you're going to post in there? And again, as we'll say, that there's potentially other things that we can discuss, especially point number 6.
Okay, so point number 6 is show people your live experience.
So if you're trying to get people to your show, the one thing you need to be posting on social media is footage of you performing live. Greg, I know you're a big film fan.
Yes.
Would you potentially really spend a lot of money, because it costs a lot of money to go to the cinema these days, would you spend a lot of money without seeing a trailer for a film?
No.
No.
I mean,
Well,
it would have to be something I would know.
Yeah. But what's the reasoning behind
Just
that?
because you're right, cinema is expensive.
Gigs are expensive.
Yeah. And I think maybe word of mouth may work for businesses, but word of mouth in this situation,
Well,
I think
it can work, but the thing is,
it's not enough.
All these people, are potentially at home. They're on the other end of a phone by the means of social network. In order to try and get the bums on seats, to use that particular analogy, what better way to do that than to actually show them what they're going to get, show them what they're missing out of. Excuse me, there's that cough again. So if I, maybe even from a state, I mean, this is one of the things I do. There's one particular moment in my band set where I can take either my phone or a digital SLR and show all these people in a crowd having a really good time. And that, you can more or less say to the people at home, look, you're missing out on this. So, and
I think, actually, just to interject, I think you've always done this, which is the fact that, and you've always said, because I've actually come out to film these guys on quite a few times, is that there's the focus being on the audience participation. Because I think too many bands possibly focus purely on just capturing themselves rather than trying to show an element of both. Because I think at the end of the day, as Sheldon said, you want bums on seats, and having an audience engagement will probably convince more people to come and see you.
If you are lucky enough to be pulling some crowds, then you need to be taking your phone out and taking either pictures of those crowds or footage of those crowds. Even if you're not, just the simple act of one of your friends in the audience getting their phone out and filming you. Try and do it as often as you possibly can. Better still, if you can get somebody to film you live. So what better way to advertise your next show than the people sitting at home getting a notification that they can actually see what's happening on stage with you live at this moment. And at least once in our current tour, I've taken my phone out, and the last song of the set, where everyone's going crazy eight bonkers, I managed to broadcast that just to show the people at home what they were missing, and what better way then to try and sell our future dates than footage of the crowd and us on stage and everyone having a fantastic time. So show people what you can do, show people what they're missing, do it as many times as you possibly can.
The funny thing is, I bet, when you asked me about would I go and see a film if I hadn't seen a trailer, and in all likelihood the answer would be no.
Yeah.
I bet the people on the other end of this camera will probably be exactly the same, but then they don't do the very thing that they would require themselves to convince them to go and see something. I mean, there are a few events like Glastonbury that will sell out without anyone knowing, but that's the exception rather than the norm, isn't it?
Yeah. So people do need persuading, but show them what they're missing out on. And again, if you're fantastic performers, let the people see the goods. You all right there?
Yeah.
It's been a long day for him. It's been a long
really
day.
Tired today. I don't know why.
You should be excited
I
in
am
the experience of
excited.
Recording yet another scintillating episode.
I am. 2 yawns.
Hashtag Greg tired.
2 yawns in 5 episodes isn't bad going. Right, so number 7. This is going to be an interesting one. Remind people regularly.
Yeah, not too regularly, but as we all know, people lead very busy lives. So we at various intervals, we have to make sure that we remind people that our up and coming gig is happening, and you can do that within the Facebook event itself. Again, if you've got an opportunity to use some footage from your last gig, that could be an excellent reminder. But the best thing to do is to try and be as creative as possible with those reminders, rather than just saying, "Oh, the gig's in 5 weeks' time," and then putting a link to the event or to to where they can buy tickets. The gig's in 4 weeks' time. The gig's in 3 weeks. That in itself is quite boring and quite repetitive, and people will mentally filter that out. So there's loads of things you can do. So you can use a gig poster, and then you can use a bit of video footage, and maybe either a bit of one of your music videos. Then you can use some live footage. One of the things that my band does, and it's incredibly easy. I just take a phone out, take a couple of members, film a couple of members of the band talking for 15 seconds about the next show. So whenever we're packing up our equipment and jetting off into the night, just do, a simple sort of reminder. You could do, every once in a while, you could do like a Facebook Live where you talk about all your upcoming shows. My band's got a podcast, and within the podcast, we have a specific section where we talk about all our upcoming shows. So that's in an audio format. So yes, you have to keep reminding people, on a semi-regular basis, but by doing it in different ways and to try and make it as entertaining as possible and as less salesy as possible. That's going to help it be. It work out. Sorry, I'm being distracted by the dog.
The dog's joining in with the conversation. So, I like the ideas. I like the fact that you do the stuff at the end of the...
I've got a couple of good ones here. I've got written down here as a suggestion. If you're doing a Facebook Live and you're doing a little bit of a performance on your Facebook Live, you can say, "All right, I'll be playing this at the O2 Academy in Liverpool this coming Saturday. Why not join me?" Or you can say, "Right, I'm open for requests for my O2 Academy show that's coming up in Liverpool this Saturday or in a fortnight." So you can, again, it's almost like you're crowbarring it in there.
You do the request thing that people...
Well, that's just a suggestion.
But in terms, when you kind of usually have a piece of paper, when you kind of shout outs and stuff like that, are they submitted online?
Yes.
So that, I suppose, is something that is a way of reminding people.
You could say, right, I'll give you some shout outs for my upcoming gig at the O2 Academy in Liverpool this Saturday.
Have you by any chance got a gig in the O2 Academy this week?
No, not coming. In December. Which, right. If you're watching this in December, you're
more than welcome to go see it.
Come on down.
So, right, okay. Next one is number 8. Create a one-off event.
So familiarity breeds contempt. That's what they say. If you're doing the same thing, potentially in the same venue again and again, that could be a little bit of a buzzkill. For example,
you really are dying today, aren't you?
I know it's tickly. It's not ideal. If you're playing the same venue or the same town on a semi-regular basis, which is something that might be occurring for a lot of independent artists and DIY musicians, and you're saying, "Please come to my show," people are going to say, "I won't come to this one. He or she is going to be there in a couple of months' time." And then what will happen is when that 2 or 3 months' time comes around and you say, "Oh, please come to my show," then they go, "Well, I won't catch this one. I'll catch the next one."
Because they'll be back in a few...
They'll be back in a few weeks. They'll be back in a few months.
Similar to what something my dad used to say, it'll be on again.
It'll be on again. He's very succinct, your dad. So that repetition, that familiarity, that repeat thing is your enemy. So the more times that you can create an individual one-off experience that will never be repeated, the better. So for example, when was it? A couple of years back? Well, whenever U2 did their Joshua Tree tour.
Yes.
And they were playing the Joshua Tree from start to finish in full, in its entirety. They've never done it before. They'll never do it again. So if I wanted to see that, I had to go and see that particular tour. Otherwise, I would never see it.
Did you go and see that?
I did, yes. Right. It cost me a lot of money as well.
However, paid a lot of money to see
I had to. But it's like it's a one-off event. It's a one-off experience. So anytime you can try and create an individual theme or something unique that happens on this particular night, that is an incentive for your audience to get off the backside and come and see you. So if you're doing something maybe round, if you're doing a gig around St Patrick's Day, you could do some Irish themed music in there. If it's Halloween, there could be, try and identify a particular theme or an element of uniqueness for each particular show, and then people have to come. Otherwise, they're going to miss it. I mean, myself as a band, we try and theme our tours as much as possible, not only to give us a marketing slant, but also to try and create something that you have to come and watch this time round, because this version of the show will never happen again.
Doesn't it make it more interesting for you as well?
Oh, it does, yeah. Because
I remember, and it's not quite the same, but I remember seeing an interview with Mark King, the bassist and lead singer from Level 42, and he was kind of saying a lot of what I do is to keep me interested. If I just kind of just did the root note stuff, I'd just get bored and switch off. So that I think it's nice to see bands doing things specifically to keep them on their toes and make it interesting for them, because if it's interesting for you, then more than likely it's going to be interesting for your audience.
I go along with that.
So yes, that I thought was an interesting point. Anyway,
interesting.
I do. Right, we are on number 9.
9,
and it is let the relevant people know. So who do you mean, Sheldon?
So I'm talking about those elements of the media that hopefully might be interested in what you're trying to do. You're going to need to do a bit of research wherever you're playing to try and let them know that the gig is taking place, in the hope that they will advertise or promote or feature your event in some way. So you're going to have to do a bit of work. So we're talking about local radio stations, local press, any sort of local music blogs online. Are there any Facebook pages that are specifically devoted to music or events within that particular area? For example, we live in St Helens, and there's a Facebook page and a Twitter page called like What's On in St Helens. Yeah. So if you're having a gig or event in St Helens, that would be a perfect place to start. So it would probably be fair to say that the majority of artists, certainly that we know, maybe wouldn't go to that amount of trouble.
Well, the funny thing is, I would have thought that a lot of these, because obviously radio's in decline.
I know, you're going to edit all these coughs out.
No. A lot of the local press, I think you wrote a post this week about music blogs and everything's kind of on the decline.
You have to do a bit of work, but if you,
but what I was going to say is that most of these things are probably crying out for content. So the likelihood of you hitting a brick wall and not actually, they'll probably welcome you with open arms, I would have thought.
So there's again, we're talking about Liverpool. There's a Facebook page called, is it Liverpool Bands?
Yes.
So that would be, again, try and find out all the smaller blogs, maybe local
even
music.
TV stations as well.
Well, potentially. I mean, in the UK, there's some smaller community TV stations.
We've got Toxic TV. Does that still exist?
I'm not too sure about Toxic. Is it That's Liverpool?
Possibly.
Yes. So they might be worthy of a try.
Any of these things, you got to be in it to win it, haven't you?
Yeah. So again, my band's been doing a little bit of a mini tour, and I contacted quite a few newspapers. The best lead I had was one particular chap who was a newspaper journalist of a small regional newspaper, and he was a fan of the band. And I said, I just actually emailed the newspaper and just said with a press release saying, here's the band, we're coming up, playing it. Hope fingers crossed you'll give us some sort of coverage. And the journalist who replied goes, I'm a massive fan of yours. I went, brilliant, here we go, newspaper coverage, here we come. And he says, I'm going into a meeting tomorrow, and I will put this to the editor of the paper. And it's brilliant. And he never got back to me. And he went, oh, no, I didn't go to that meeting because I was going on holiday. And, never mind. But he assures me that when we come round next time, which will be in 12 months' time, that we'll get a feature. So let's hope he's still at the paper. But again, if I hadn't bothered to do that.
But you also played, this is quite early on in your career, you played, is it the City Radio Tower or Capitol? I can't remember which one.
It was Radio City.
You literally got to the top of the tower.
The top of it. This will be nothing if you're watching this in America. Try and remain as universal as possible.
Yeah, I know,
Greg.
but ultimately it was a really good experience, and B, it was like, well, I'm sure you probably just went, oh, let's give him a shout and see what happens.
We had a personal connection with one of the radio presenters.
That helps as well.
That helps, yes.
Okay,
so make friends in the music industry. That's what relationships are good. But yeah, and again, this is it. In this particular instance, using this particular, I think it was called George. This reporter. Okay, so I didn't get round to being featured that time. However, I've now got the name of him as a newspaper reporter who I can contact.
Remind.
I can with hopefully in a good amount of time for when we play that particular town / city next year.
Are you able to comment which borough this is in?
Derbyshire.
Right. Okay, that's not really helped me, but there's a point other than
I'll tell you once the cameras have stopped rolling.
Cool.
He was trying his best. He was trying his best.
I look forward to seeing the possible
he did go on
outcome
holiday.
of that.
Yes, but this is it. So what I did was I used I did some research in trying to find out the regional newspapers for all the towns that were playing on this particular tour. And like you say, you've got to be in it to win it. If you don't ask, if you never shoot,
don't get.
If you never shoot, you'll never score.
Right, so finally, number 10, and I think you have mentioned this before in
one
of our previous episodes.
It doesn't matter, I'll keep on repeating it and reiterating it.
Seem quite important, which is have a marketing budget.
Have a marketing budget. So if you want people to come to your show, you're probably going to have to spend a little bit of money trying to reach people, probably your existing fans, to make sure that they know about the show. Or if you've got a long lead-up time, to maybe try and introduce yourself to people who might like your music. Once you've made that introduction, you can maybe have a little bit of a, not necessarily a relationship with them, but try and get to know them a little better. Or if they can start following your page in this intervening period, and you can deliver some sort of content and additional music videos to them, and then you can maybe run another advert to try and get them to your show. So for each one of our shows as a band, we will have a marketing budget of several £100. Are you going to be editing all these coughs out?
This is probably the worst I've ever heard.
And well, it's because I've been talking for half an hour. That's why. I could have done with 2 cups of tea rather than just the one.
Sorry.
But yeah, so we will. In order to accumulate money and to make money, we have to spend money. So, that will be a marketing budget for one of our shows could be a small amount on posters, some flyers for some types of shows. We do a lot of theatres, so we'll get some flyers printed.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, because not weird, I suppose, because as I work a lot with Sheldon, I get to see all the ins and outs. So although I might not be in a band myself, I do still get to see quite a lot of the other elements of it. And whilst Sheldon is probably one of the best people I know at using Facebook for targeted ad campaigns, he still has flyers as well in colour.
Colour?
On a reasonably good quality card, which always says something positively.
Yes. Single-sided as well. Or sometimes double-sided. But in addition to that, we will spend several £100 per show trying to reach our existing fans. Occasionally, a little bit of money to get to their friends as well. We spend a little bit of money trying to reach the people who've maybe viewed our videos but haven't liked our page. We'll spend a little bit of money on that. Sometimes I will spend a little bit of money advertising to people who like music festivals in that area, and I will show them some footage of us at a music festival. And the thing you have to remember, people who go to music festivals, they've got a lot of money that they spend on live music. So sometimes, I do a little bit of speculative spending. So most of the ad spend that I do for my live music shows will be on people who already know me. And again, maybe I think we're going to try and do an episode devoted to Facebook ad marketing in a future episode.
Yes, I think somebody did ask about that.
Yes, so we are getting to that, but we want it to be good and to be right. But yeah, so the majority of the marketing spend is devoted to people who already know us. But I will, it's like putting a little bit of money on the roulette wheel. I will speculatively try and gamble a little bit of money in order to try and bring our event to the attention of people who don't necessarily know us that well. I think we've covered 10 very good tips there. So yeah, I think ultimately the consensus is that shows don't really market themselves, and that the whole, I won't necessarily say ethos, but if you want people at your shows, you have to work it the same as everything else. And as we can see, there's loads of individual steps that you have to do and that you have to keep returning to and consider it. It's pretty much like everything else, you know. And again, you could have a marketing plan, and maybe a future episode might be to what would be a typical marketing plan to promote a live music event from start to finish, from the show going on sale to the actual show date itself. What are all the individual sort of points? And as you can see, there's a lot of things to do. And if you do want hundreds of people at your shows, these shows don't sell themselves.
No. Thanks for watching.
I'm going to have a glass of water now, and a very large one. So thank you for putting up with my coughs and splutters. Hopefully by the next episode, I shall be fully recovered. We shall see you next time.
Thank you.
See you now.